In 1978, George Romero made a sequel to his classic zombie film, Night of the Living Dead, with Dawn of the Dead. Even though it's not technically a sequel and more of a spiritual successor to the original Night, it's still claimed to be one of the best zombie films of all time, next to Romero's other two amazing installments with Night of the Living Dead and Day of the Dead. Like with most of his films, it has great social commentary and is more so about the characters than the actual threat, and this time, it was in color. Cut to many years later, producer Eric Newman wanted to remake the original, and producer Mark Abraham secured the rights to Dawn from Richard P. Rubinstein, who believed that Newman's vision for the project was the right one to helm the remake. A then unknown James Gunn was hired to write the script, and others were brought on to punch it up. Another unknown named Zack Snyder was hired to direct, and the film was released in 2004. This remake is one of those movies that works but also doesn't work. It works in a sense that if you know absolutely nothing of the original film, which was kind of the intent to begin with, you'll enjoy it for what it is. A fun zombie flick with some cool action. But that's about it. It has some marginally interesting characters, some great gore, which was supplied by Nightmare on Elm Street alum Heather Langenkamp and her effects company, a fast-paced plot, and some cool zombies. However, the film as a remake doesn't work. The thing that I didn't really like is that it's too far strayed from the original film that you can barely call it a remake. If it were tweaked in some areas, you could just make this an original zombie film. But the setting is the thing that's holding it back, because if it were released as is, but under a different title, it would be called a ripoff. However, on the other side of the coin, the fact that it bears the name Dawn of the Dead kind of tarnishes the original film, because it's a simplified and surface-level version of such an amazing film. It really is a double-edged sword for me. At least with something like The Thing, it goes back to the original story, slims down the amount of characters, and puts it in a contemporary setting. Or The Fly, they make it more interesting because he gradually turns into the Fly, but keeping similar themes of losing your humanity for science, but also accentuating the themes of a tragic love story. Dawn of the Dead is more of a reboot, in all honesty. Maybe I'm judging it too harshly, but with The Thing and The Fly, it improved on their original films by going in a different direction, but developing that direction really well. Here, Snyder's Dawn just takes the concept of zombies in a shopping mall, takes out all the intelligence, satire, character building, and everything that made the original so good in the first place, and tosses it out the window for the sake of, oh hey, look how cool these zombies are. Very similar to my thoughts on the Evil Dead remake. Now, I don't want people thinking I hate this movie. I don't. As is, it's a good movie. It's a turn your brain off zombie flick to watch on a lazy evening. But with that, Dawn of the Dead is definitely a movie I won't be watching again anytime soon. Maybe Tom Savini's remake of a Romero classic will fare much better, but that's a discussion for another day. This is definitely one of those movies that just gets worse the more I think about it, just like Evil Dead. Because it's essentially a movie about nothing and the characters are one-dimensional caricatures, like Michael Kelly being the redneck asshole, Ty Burrell being a douchebag asshole, and the black guy being the black asshole. Honestly, most of these characters are just fucking assholes. Pretty much nobody is likable and exists to be fodder. Sure, you have the main lead, Weber's character, and Rams's character, and they're marginally interesting, but I still didn't, care about them. Then you have the annoying girl constantly being a paranoid and annoying sack of shit, and many of the problems in the latter half of the movie are because of her. Most of them just exist to die, and that is a trope that I absolutely fucking despise and am really getting sick of. This is literally just a surface level and not as interesting version of the original as I mentioned before. Sure, the running zombies are cool, but when I don't care, then they're just cool zombies to exist. Especially when this is compared to Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead, which just gets better the more I think about it. And on top of that, when running zombies were really well utilized in Train to Busan, which is arguably the greatest zombie film ever made. So, you have 95% of your characters that suck, your story sucks, your themes are non-existent, it's way too quickly paced, and on top of that, the ending fucking sucks! Oh yeah, by the way, all these characters fucking die anyway. What? Yeah, I might not have given a shit about them, but what the flying fuck is up with that? Just being like, yeah, they all fucking die anyway, because fuck you if you did care about them. It just sort of adds to the whole post-9/11 nihilism we had at the time that has not aged well at all. gritty and depressing for the sake of gritty and depressing. Fun times at the Snyder Ranch. So yeah, stick with the original for the love of God, or if you want a good Romero remake, watch Night of the Living Dead, because despite Savini's vision being majorly compromised, it's still properly updated shit and holding on to what made the original good. While this trashes everything that made the original good because reasons.